Hello and welcome back. This is David from the Personal Finance Squad. We just finished up Chapter 6 with FSA accounts, so obviously we go to Chapter 7. And we are getting in the back nine, so to speak, folks, where we are really getting mature with our budget. And at this point, we're going to take some more topics to continue to build out and build that path to future success for all. So as we like to say, we like to do things that puts more money in our pocket and not in someone else's. When we get into Chapter 7, we're talking about Dependent Care Assistant Plan. If you have a child, this could appeal to you as it does with Jasper. If you have a dependent need with someone living with you, that could also appeal to you. So we can see, I'm going to read a couple things here. Primary thing you're going to see is daycare. So this again would appeal to Jasper, right? But we could also have school programs or help with elderly parents or ailing spouse. And there's two versions of how you can use this, so we will certainly cover these and you can see what may work for you if it applies to you. Now, as we like to say, pre-tax money is a nice thing to hear. And it pays for services like medical expenses does or 401k does that we've seen in our exercises. This puts more money in our pockets. So you can see to qualify as a dependent under the program, you can see there's some criteria here that must be followed. Here's a key one just to make sure you know that the provider, you have to be in the provider's household. So if I have a child that I need dependent care on, my child has to live in the household. And you can see receive more than 1/2 of his or her total support from the legal guardian. So it can be a guardian, not just necessarily a parent. And then there's several other definitions. We're just going to kind of blow out the normal ones here. You can see there's a link here that the IRS puts out every year, so you can check that out if it's something that you want to look further into. It's important to keep an eye on things. I will do my best to keep abreast of everything we go through here because things do change all the time. But generally, the way this is set up right now without a revamp, this is what we see here is what things are and should be for the term. It's been a long time under this setup as it is today. So you can see a couple things here, like the dependent child was under 13 when care was provided. We see the spouse was not able to care for him or herself due to mental disability or lived in the household for more than a year, or person was not able to care for him or herself due to physical or mental disability and lived in the same household for more than half the year and was neither a dependent. I don't want to have to read through all this, but you can see what we're seeing here is that there's just certain parameters that you have to follow, and you read through them very quickly and you can see if this is something that would actually provide for you. So if you're a student, this is not going to apply. If you're someone who is creating their budget, we're in the working world, or revamping your budget, then this is something you should take a look at. But either way, you need to know how it works to your advantage. So you can see the last little parameter here. We're going to go down a little bit because I'm going to summarize a bit. What we're saying here, in general, if a child is under 13 years old and makes less than $3,300 and lives in the same household, again, we talked about primary residence, the DCAP applies. So the difference here is that the money in the DCAP counts against the dependent care tax credit that can be deducted from income taxes every year. So there's two things we need to look at. You're either going to use this DCAP, which is, again, they're just credits. So it's for one child, $3,000, or 2 or more children, $6,000 is the maximum. So again, that's a tax credit. Very important. It's different than like a dependent care account because that's going to work like an FSA. That's the pre-tax difference. Dependent is a tax credit there. So I jumped down a little bit, but we can see right here that the DCAP has parameters as well. And I just checked the IRS, and these numbers are still the same. So you can see right here, you can get up to $5,000 if married and filing joint return or filing as a single parent. Okay, so that's Jasper. And $2,500 if married and filing separately. So we need to figure out how Jasper can take advantage of this DCAP plan. So per usual, we're going to run some basic math. We can see right here that $3,600 was the amount that he had listed earlier in our exercises, which comes out to $300 a month. And we see that the 26 paycheck dividing the 3,600 came out to $138 for those. So now we need to add this factor into the paycheck for Jasper. And we can see the same things that we have been looking at with the 401k here, taking the tax out, and then we added the FSA in the last chapter into this, and now we need to add the DCAP. So we need to use our $138 number rounded. Again, because that's pre-tax, it's just a simple subtraction. And now we see that it comes out to $28.19. Now we take the 25% tax rate. So you can either perform this calculation or just multiply by 0.75 of this $29.57 total. And ultimately, it brings the take-home pay to $2,114. Now, we can see the difference right here in the paycheck is $103 less from the FSA check. We're going to see how this plays out nicely, because right now we're saying, hey, per month on average, on the 10 of the 12 months that we know of, the smallest amount we're going to live on, really, which is all 12 months rather, is a $223 a month average from where it stood in the last chapter with the FSAs. So let's take a look at what we're talking about here. So we can see right here that being that the take-home pay is $206 in 10 of the 12 months, lower by $206 because of the 103, the advantage is the $276 deposited in for dependent care. So there's a gain. As in the 2 months, bonus check months, that's $414 that goes into the account. Look right here and see we've added $276, and we know that child care is $300. You can see that when you add all this up, even with the FSA, these two pre-tax accounts, while the paycheck is lower, right here it's $21.14 per paycheck times 2, and the remain stays the same, the gain and loss / loss goes up. And with the bonus check month, it also shows the same thing. And you can see the big difference here. Obviously, the difference is in these numbers that make these numbers reflected. So while these aren't truly in your account, the money is accounted for. So therefore, when you go back and use the money to take it, have your ins and outs to do our balancing like we always say, this pre-tax benefit is showing itself here in the budget expenses versus income section here. So there's a clear advantage to partaking in this DCAP. So we can see right here that the FSA increased by 28 and the DCAP by 138 in the respective chapter here, and it creates additional 166 a month for the DCAP portion. So this is, remember, this is an additional. Always keep in mind that we have the rounding in here. So you're going to see 82 right here, and you might say, well, how come that's not 166? It's 164. So again, it's just rounding. The whole point is you can see the increase of money that Jasper has to have options with. Without further ado, we're going to get to this section here, 7.1, varying monthly balances. But we've already seen here in this first section of FSAs why it's very important that Jasper partake in this benefit to him. Okay, so that will finish this video, and we will see you in section 7.1 of the FSAs.